Thank you, Randy, and President Stewart, and Rotarians. Thank you for this opportunity. I have also addressed the Rotary Club of Berea, Kentucky, and they would fit in the front 4 tables. So this is quite a different occasion. I enjoyed the choice of music, actually. You'll see in the talk that mountains are important at Berea. You'll see that we celebrate something we call Mountain Day. And we were founded, according to our abolitionist preacher founder, on the gospel of impartial love. So we've got the love and the mountain thing going on, but we hope that when our students go up the mountain on Mountain Day that they don't get those two concepts too mixed up. Lori was introduced to you earlier, arrived at Berea last summer. We came from Colgate University in Hamilton, New York. That's located about the same distance from Syracuse as Berea is from Lexington. Syracuse, Lexington, and Louisville are obviously all homes of great universities with exciting basketball programs, only one of which is not playing anymore this year. But I do want you to notice that my tie has both red and blue on it. And lest there be any concern about our loyalties, I can assure you that even before we came to Berea, we always rooted against the Syracuse Orange, no matter who they were playing, because Colgate was always sacrificial to Syracuse early in the season. And we always rooted for the Kentucky Wildcats and the Louisville Cardinals whenever they played Syracuse. Even though it's March, a month-long Kentucky State holiday, I think, I didn't come here to talk just about basketball. I want to begin, in fact, by recognizing that during the last 100 years, this club's members have devoted much time and energy to community service in Louisville and the world beyond. As a college president, I certainly appreciate your club's scholarship programs, including the new Promise Scholarship. You continue to offer hope and opportunity to your recipients and their families, and I thank you for that. Education is the most powerful investment Rotary can make. The positive effects of what you do today and what you've done for so long will only continue to increase over the course of years and generations. That's something we understand at Berea too. Your commitment to education is a commitment to a better tomorrow for this wonderful city, our state, and region, and the world. I'd like to start my talk with that word commitment that you see on the screen. It's a word we use a lot at Berea College, where our unique mission is formally stated through what we call our Great Commitments. Through a document first written 50 years ago, Berea committed to provide an excellent education for promising low-income students, primarily from the Appalachian region. The college also commits to provide campus jobs for all students, not only to help them with money for expenses, but also to teach them that all work has dignity. With an emphasis on continuing to work toward equality in today's world, the Great Commitments also highlight Berea's founding by Christian abolitionists in 1855 as the first interracial and coeducational college in the South. I've grown to appreciate that my predecessors chose great commitments when they named their statement of Berea's mission. They could have talked about Berea's principles or beliefs or ideals, but I think maybe they saw those as private things you hold within yourself. But a commitment is different. A commitment is something you do out in the world with a direct effect in the lives of others. A commitment is a belief or a principle combined with a sense of duty, a sense that you must take action. For example, your Club of Louisville certainly believes in education, but that belief has greater meaning and impact because you have a commitment to help young people through your scholarship program. Since I came to Berea last July, I've come to understand that no word except commitment would make sense at our college. Both the town and College of Berea exist today because our founders put their principles into action in the 1850s and 1860s. Those founders were people of extraordinary commitment. They didn't just believe in the unity and equality of all people under God in Christ. They didn't just believe that black and white students and male and female students should be educated together, even in a slave-holding border state of Kentucky before women had the right to vote. They didn't just believe that poor children and families from Appalachia and beyond should have access to good education as long as they were willing to work for it. They didn't just believe these things, they committed to build a college and educate those young people according to their Christian values, such as the power of love over hate, human dignity and equality, and peace with justice. The generations of Bereans before me, not just the college's leaders, but its faculty, staff, students, and alumni as well, have always kept these founding commitments in mind and tried to fulfill them. I think that sense of purpose is the reason Berea College has persevered and prospered, even in challenging times, such as the recent economic downturn, but we've had other rocky periods before. The commitments provide unity around the important questions. Why does this college exist? What must it continue to do, and whom must it serve? We don't always agree at Berea on specific decisions or methods, but the great commitments give us a common starting point as we figure out the best ways forward. In fact, I'd say that our college has room for many different beliefs just because we share the great commitments so deeply and so thoroughly. As you can tell, I really enjoy talking about Berea's great commitments. And so far, I've focused on something that happened 50 years ago, the writing of the Great Commitments, and 150 years ago when Berea was founded. But I thought, because you're celebrating your 100th anniversary here, that it might be interesting to focus on a couple of key turning points about 100 years ago, about the same time that your club was founded. In the early 1900s, the Kentucky legislature passed the Day Law, forbidding interracial education at all private colleges in the state. They passed the law, or Charles Day introduced the law, and the legislature passed it because he had visited Berea College and didn't like what he saw, black and white students learning together. Well, Berea was founded to oppose racial injustice and to educate black and white students together, so we opposed this law all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1909, the court upheld the Day Law, and Berea had no choice at that point but to segregate. But even after this setback for equality and justice, Berea devoted continual resources to provide educational opportunity for African Americans, but in a new context. Over the next several years, Berea College trustees worked to secure funding, including a challenge grant from Andrew Carnegie to start a separate school for black students. You may have seen it, Lincoln Institute in Shelbyville, not too far from Louisville, no longer open. But that school was opened in October 1912, 100 years and 6 months ago. A college was never established at Lincoln Institute, but it was a prominent and successful secondary boarding school for more than 50 years. You may know it as the school that produced one of Kentucky's most influential civil rights leaders, Whitney M. Young, Jr. Today, the proud heritage of the Lincoln Institute continues through the Lincoln Foundation based here in Louisville, which provides year-round educational programs, including the Whitney M. Young Scholars Program for promising low-income students. And in a nice closing of the circle, we usually have 2 or 3 of those young scholars studying at Berea. It remains a point of pride for us that Lincoln's legacy of success traces back to our founding commitments to interracial education. At about the same time, in the early 1900s, Berea College clarified its commitment to educate low-income students, primarily from Appalachia. That picture you see is the Mountain Day celebration I mentioned, where we cancel classes and the entire college goes and climbs the mountain in the forest that we own. Over the next several decades, under the leadership of college presidents William G. Frost and William J. Hutchins, Berea was often the only college option for the region's economically disadvantaged students. It It's been a hallmark of Berea since its earliest days to deny admission to children of wealthy families and to make an excellent education affordable for even the most financially challenged students. When I came, I asked the college lawyer, are we in any difficulty for discriminating against children of wealthy families? And he said, no, that's not a protected category. So. A little more than 100 years ago, this philosophy was distilled into the model we still follow. Only low-income students are admitted, and students do not pay any tuition. All students work on campus, and they are paid modest wages to help cover a small portion of their expenses for room, board, books, and supplies. This is modern-day Mountain Day. I was up on the mountain with the students that October morning as the sun rose. Now, it is not correct, as I have heard some people say, that the work done by our students in effect pays for their tuition. That would only be true if students could do all the work at the college, including teaching all the courses and presumably getting on the road for Berea and giving talks at Rotary Clubs. Still, student labor does make an essential contribution to lowering the costs of running the college. And as an aside, given all the attention nationally to the increasing costs of college, this could well be a model for other schools to follow. Our endowment and a robust annual giving program can support our current enrollment of about 1,600 students, but only because we keep the costs very low through the use of 1,600 part-time employees. The Appalachian commitment I mentioned a moment ago doesn't stop with our admissions emphasis or the fact that Berea charges less money from its students than any other private college in the nation. Berea also has a long history of preserving the cultural and artistic traditions of Appalachia throughout our student crafts program, our Appalachian archives, which include thousands of rare artifacts and recordings, and our bluegrass ensemble and country dancers program for students. And there you see some of the students currently. Upper left is the bluegrass program, lower right is the country dance program. We also do a lot of community outreach beyond our campus. This began about 100 years ago with Berea teachers and medical staff trekking into the mountains on horseback. We also sent our library out on mules to the counties that had no access to books. It continues today through various service programs, including the college's federally funded Gear Up and Promise neighborhood programs in 19 eastern Kentucky school systems. Through these federal grants, Berea's Partners for Education program provides intensive educational, health, and family services to more than 20,000 at-risk students and their families. So clearly, the Berea College story, whether we're talking about today or 50 or 100 or 150 years ago, has been shaped by a set of commitments that I've outlined so far. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the creation and evolution of the actual document, the Great Commitments, and then I'll conclude and take any questions you might have about our school. Reading the speeches and writings of the founders of Berea and its early presidents establishes that all of our commitments really do go back to the very origin of the school. But they were first written down in an actual list in 1962 as part of a grant proposal to the Ford Foundation by Berea's then Dean, Lewis Smith, and President Francis Hutchins. By 1969, the faculty and the Board of Trustees had approved the first version of the formal document with the title, The Great Commitments of Berea College. And since 1970, the commitments have appeared in the college's academic catalog and virtually all other publications as a statement of the essence of Berea College. Great commitments are not entirely static, even when they are great and have full community support. They sometimes need new interpretation or framing. In fact, although there isn't too much attention to this, the original 1962 articulation had only 6 great commitments, not the 8 that we have now. In 1972, we came to understand that our commitment to Appalachia included both educating its students, whatever their level of need, and other forms of outreach and support, so that one commitment to the region of Appalachia turned into 2, and at that point we had 7 great commitments. There was another round of revisions. I think we do this when we're when we're between other forms of crises at the college. Another round of revisions took place in the 1990s, in which we recognized that our commitment to inclusivity had always extended to both the dimensions of gender and race, so that again, one commitment became two, which gave us the 8 that I will share at the end of this talk. Now, I'm the 9th president of Berea, so some folks asked me if I plan to add a 9th commitment. That's tempting, of course, but 8 is already quite a large number for an institution to take on, and so I probably won't do that, but who knows? The 1990s revision also added an opening paragraph or preamble to what formerly had been just a list of commitments. The preamble alludes to the abolitionist roots and the inclusive Christian character of Berea College, and it directly connects the commitments to our historic motto, God has made of one blood all peoples of the earth. In fact, if you go to a Berea College basketball game, you'll sometimes hear our cheer, one blood. No one else gets that. This motto comes from a passage in the Bible's book of Acts, and it frequently appears in all kinds of Berea College materials, including our logo. The King James Version of the Bible translates that phrase as all nations of men, rather than all peoples of the earth. And that's why you see on that sign from a protest in the 60s, God has made of one blood all nations of men. That was used as our motto in that form for several decades, but the more up-to-date translation, all peoples on earth, is both more accurate and better suited for Berea's commitment to welcome and promote equality for all people. The version of the Great Commitments approved in 1993 with a preamble followed by the list of the 8 commitments is still the version we're using today. As I said earlier, it's such a powerful summary of what Berea is all about. I'm a little biased, but I think it's the most clear and compelling statement of mission and vision that I've ever seen in higher education. And with that in mind, I'll end my talk by reading the Great Commitments. Berea College commits itself to provide an educational opportunity for students from Appalachia, black and white, who have great promise and limited economic resources. To provide an education of high quality with a liberal arts foundation and outlook. To stimulate understanding of the Christian faith and its many expressions, and to emphasize the Christian ethic and motive of service to others. To provide for all students through the labor program experiences for learning and serving in community, and to demonstrate that labor, mental and manual, has dignity as well as utility. To assert the kinship of all people and to provide interracial education with a particular emphasis on understanding and equality among blacks and whites. To create a democratic community dedicated to education and equality for men and women. To maintain a residential campus and to encourage in all members of the community a way of life characterized by plain living, pride in labor well done, zest for learning, high personal standards, and concern for the welfare of others. And finally, to serve the Appalachian region primarily through education, but also through other appropriate services. When I read these words aloud, I feel like many voices are speaking together with me. The voices of our founders are here in this document, as are the voices of 8 Berea College presidents and countless other leaders and workers who have preceded me. I also think that this document is a great testament to our highest priority, which is our commitment to educate and prepare our talented, hardworking students for lives of good citizenship, effective leadership, and thoughtful service. I'm humbled and honored to be the leader of Berea College and one of the keepers of its great commitments. It's been a pleasure for me to be with you here today and share those commitments with you, to tell you a little bit more about our school and the college that Lori and I have already grown to love. And I'll be glad to take any questions in the time we have remaining.